Okay. Jesse's here. We are talking about Last Epoch, specifically the launch. So, yesterday at 11 a.m. Central was the official Last Epoch launch. It was available to download on Steam, a few minutes after 11 a.m. Now, the game has been, existed basically. It has been playable for 3 years. It's been in early access for a long time. But this was the announced release date and time. 1.0 is a big benchmark for them. It's a big celebration for all the years of funding that they've got from all their supporters. They had a Kickstarter, forever and ever ago when they first had this. The history of the company is cool and interesting, and by all accounts, it's a smaller studio, but for the 1.0 launch, it was declared that they had sold now like well over 1 million copies. This is not a free-to-play game. It is a paid-for game. It costs like, $40, $60. I mean, depending on what version you buy. It's not free and it's not cheap. And they had 150,000 people ready and waiting to play the game. I should also say that this launch date and time was published and posted across all social media variants months and months and months ago. People had been circling this date on their calendar. People took some days off of work. And a lot of people expected to have connectivity issues and server problems because the most recent multiplayer patch that Last Epoch published, although it had a paltry player count by comparison, even at its low player count, it had pretty terrible connection issues, loading issues. And people suspected that, at any launch of a game, it's going to have some problems. It's a smaller studio. I don't know how their servers are going to handle this experience. So lo and behold, yesterday was an absolute unmitigated disaster. Basically, you could not log into the game and play. And if you could log in, you couldn't get past the level 5 zone. And that was the kickoff of the day, probably the first 5 to 6 hours of the day. Finally, when all the Europeans gave up and went to sleep, you could play the game, and it was stable for maybe, I would say, a few hours, occasional load time issues, but for the most part, you didn't get any matchmaking errors as you did in the morning. Now, here we are, day 2, and the problems are right back where they were. You can only play in probably 20-minute spurts. Now, I can't connect at all. And I don't want to roast this company from a technical standpoint. I know that, these problems are hard to solve and so on, and you can't just throw money at it. You can't just magically double your hardware and it's going to be fixed. I know it's more complicated than that. But at the same time, selling well over 1 million copies, you would think that and especially given how long of a lead time they had, you would have expected them to put an overwhelming amount of money into supporting the infrastructure before launch and all the testing and QA that goes into it. You would expect them to pour money into that. Not because, I want to play the game, me individually, and I'm a gamer and I'm a consumer and I want to play. I'm actually more talking about for their sake. They should have done that for their own company's sake, because a launch this bad, it could tank a game, and I've seen it before. It killed Wolcen. Nobody remembers this game, but there was a game called Hellgate London a very long time ago. It killed that game. If you have performance problems with your game, it can literally brick your game. It can kill a game. Now, if you're cynical about this, you can say that, well, they just made a shit ton of money and they made out like bandits, and they can suddenly fire all their developers and just run hosted off a skeleton crew and not support the live service game that they said that they would have. and they made out like bandits. They made a shit ton of money on this 1.0 release, and that's all, so bully for them. That's a cynical way of seeing it. I think the more realistic way of seeing it is that these guys just were not prepared and did not do enough prep work in order to support the amount of players, because they absolutely should have forecasted the player count. I think that was a given. I actually thought it could have been even more. You're releasing on a Wednesday when not a single other ARPG title in the vicinity is releasing anything. Is a complete void of content to play. So I don't have a lot of sympathy for them. I think that this is a huge, huge blunder. I think I know that there are a lot of ways that you can't account for this. There are a lot of ways where you can't fault them, but there are some ways that you can fault them. And I don't have a lot of sympathy for them. The only sympathy that I do have as a consumer now is recognizing that this game may die because of this experience. I suspect that they would lose, depending on how much longer these issues persist for, they could lose 70, 80, 90% of their potential player base, maybe more than that. And people like me who play just the first few weeks of any given cycle, maybe we'll bounce back in here and there, but there's no way that you will have the type of support that you expect for the long term. This type of thing certainly doesn't grow a player base. I would say it hard caps it. And there's a ceiling. There's a ceiling to the growth of your game with this type of experience. And I've seen a lot of shills talking about how this happens with every game launch. But I have experienced a lot of game launches, including all the Path of Exile game launches, patch launches that have been pretty poor. And I still think that this may be the worst one, if not in the top 3 worst ones. The difference between this launch and the launches that have gone poorly for Path of Exile is that in this situation, you can't, there are times when you can't even play at all. You can't make any progress. Most of the time with the other connection issues the Path of Exile had, disconnects and things, you could at least make progress. It was just really, really annoying and frustrating. In this situation, there are times when you literally have to quit. You have to Alt F4 the game and play something else for an hour and then come back and hope that it's working. I have not experienced that in a game in a long, long, long time. This is definitely like top 3 worst launches that I've been a part of, at least. So I don't know. I don't know if the game will be able to sustain the hype. It had a lot of hype, really did. A lot of hype. All these other non-ARPG streamers like Shroud and whoever, those people are playing this game, and this is the only time that you can capitalize. This is it. This is the only time. There's not going to be another time when you can capitalize on your attention. And if this is what happens when all the spotlight is on you, then I don't think that that's a good look. So I actually really enjoy the game itself. I mean, the gameplay and the progression that I'm experiencing. I'm trying to play a Lich and I don't know what I'm doing. First time playing this class, but it's hard. It's really hard to be supportive and hard to be optimistic when it's this bad. So anyways, I know a lot of you aren't even playing this game and aren't experiencing this shit show, but yeah, just thought I would give a little update on that and my stance, I guess, my opinion. So hope you all are having a nice Thursday. Bye.